Hey y'all, welcome back to Krista's Kitchen. So today we're making our jalapeno popper taquitos. Very, very simple. We're using our crock pot function or our slow cooker function in our Ninja Foodi to make the filling. And then we'll need about 30 minutes at the end to take the filling, roll it into tortillas, and pop it in the oven to make them into taquitos. We already made the dip for what we're going to use today. I made it last night, so I'll insert a video clip in here if you want to see how to make that. It's simple as well. Very simple, very few ingredients. We're going to get straight to it. We need about 3 to 4 large chicken breasts. Since I'm using the Tyson thin chicken breast, I'm going to use about 5. At least that's what I'm expecting. Let's see. Those are pretty big still. And I already have it turned on the slow cooker function. These are actually pretty big, so I'm going to stick with just 4, even though they're the thin sliced. And I'd say about 1.5 pounds maybe is what we're going for. Really, it depends on how many people you're wanting to feed. This is one of the easiest recipes to cut down if you're not wanting to feed a whole crowd. So I've got about 1.5 pounds of chicken breast. They're still frozen, as y'all saw. I'm going to add in a block of cream cheese. All right, so we have our chicken, our cream cheese. We're going to add a teaspoon of salt. There we go. A teaspoon of garlic powder and a teaspoon of cumin. So it's super simple. All your seasonings will be a teaspoon. There we go. And then what makes it the jalapeno popper style stuff is that cumin, I breathed it in, is about 1/3 cup of jarred jalapeno, like the pickled jalapeno slices. I like a little bit extra of the juice, so I'm getting just a little bit more in there. And that's it. We're going to put the lid on, and it's going to cook on low for about 5 hours. I'll keep an eye on it, but we'll come back, shred it up, and mix it in. We'll add some cheese and then roll it into our taquitos. So I'll bring y'all back after I've shredded it all up before we add the cheese and stuff. So y'all can see how we roll them, put them in the oven, and have a very easy dinner. So we're going to go ahead and make our dressing. This will be our dressing for our salad tonight, as well as the dip for our taquitos for tomorrow. We want to let it sit at least 2 to 3 hours for it to taste the best. So this is a tomatillo, a spicy tomatillo ranch dressing. This is actually from a friend of mine from a long time ago. We've been making this for, let's see, Eleanor is 7, so at least for 8 years, because a friend of mine in Germany made it for us a long time ago, and it's like addicting. Especially, and she made it with the taquitos that we're going to make tomorrow. But I love it. We're just making some large chunks for 4 tomatillos. Now you can cut this recipe in half if you want, because it makes about 4 cups. So if you don't need quite that much, then it easily cuts in half. But I'm just making some larger chunks, taking the little stem and center out of these tomatillos. We're just husking them before, and husking might sound like a big deal, but y'all see I'm just literally peeling that outside off of it. And none of this is going to waste. It's all going in our composter. Now, if you can't find tomatillos where you're at, I used to use a salsa verde, like the stuff in a can, and that will substitute as well. I use 2 cans of the salsa verde per dressing. Like, for this amount, I use 2 cans. But I did cut back on the water. I would always just save my water entirely until the end. And that way, however much extra I needed to thin it out to the consistency we liked is what I would do. Okay, next thing we're adding in is the juice of 2 limes. If you don't have real limes, you just have regular lime or lime juice, then use about 3 teaspoons or about a tablespoon of lime juice. But that's what we're going with here, is hopefully about 3 teaspoons. Now, one way to get this juice out a little bit easier is roll the lime on your countertop before you try to juice it. Next, we're going to add in 2 packets of ranch dressing. Now, I don't use the packets, so I measure out of my container. So it's going to end up being 2 tablespoons per packet. So we need 4 tablespoons of this ranch seasoning mix. If you have the buttermilk one, that one has the most flavor. I've not found the big container in the buttermilk just yet. You need 2 cups of buttermilk, which is a pint. So we're just going to pour in this whole pint. So that's the max line for our little mini blender. So I have to mix the rest of this in my large bowl once we get it all done. But we'll go ahead and put the rest of our seasonings in with it too though. We need a tablespoon of minced garlic. And we need about 2 jalapenos diced up. I usually use fresh, but I realized I used my fresh up yesterday with making some more pepper jelly. So I'm going to use my jarred jalapenos. So I'm going to just kind of eyeball it, maybe see. So about 2 tablespoons worth of the jarred jalapenos is what I'm doing. It looks about like 2 small jalapenos to me. And then lastly, we need about a cup of cilantro. And you can chop it ahead of time if you want to, but I just put stems and all. Not that big one, because it has a ton of flavor. I have very much overfilled this, so I hope it treats me nice. This is the bowl that we're going to save it in the fridge. So I'm going to pour in the rest of that buttermilk that was from the 2 cups. 2/3 of a cup of water. And a cup of sour cream. And a cup of mayonnaise. Y'all see, I'm really trying to use up all of my storage stock. Even my little sandwich squeezes before I go to the grocery store and restock. And I'm just using my little sour cream cup as a measuring for my cup of my cup of mayonnaise. And we'll pour this in. We're just going to mix it all together. We'll put this in the fridge to sit until dinner tonight. Now, once this comes out, I like to pour all of it back, well, half of it back into this jar, because this is much easier to keep in this inside fridge. And then we'll keep the rest outside. Now, if you have a large blender, like the big tall one, blend it all up in there. This is just because I don't have my large blender. I'm kind of having to make do with what I've got inside the camper. Let's switch to a whisk and see if that helps mix it up a little bit easier. Now this will thicken up with that ranch dressing, but if it's too thick for what you like, then add a little bit more water to it and thin it out some. Okay, y'all, into the fridge this goes. Our chicken's all done. I shredded it with just 2 forks down in the bottom of the pan and mixed it in with the cream cheese and juice that was in the bottom of it. You see it's very juicy, but that's all it really is that cream cheese, chicken, and jalapeno, and then your seasoning. Now we're going to mix in 1.5 cups of cheese, and this is just some cheese. You can really use whatever kind you like. If you see that I prefer my Colby Jack most of the time. If I had some of the taco cheese or the Mexican blend that the grocery stores have, I would be using that right now. But I'm just using what I have. I had about 1 cup in that, so I'm going to add about another 1/2 cup from here. Like I always say, more cheese, more better. So if you want a little bit more, then feel free to add it. But we're just mixing that straight into here. I have about 15 flour tortillas already warmed up and sitting right here in front of me. And we're just going to kind of lay them out, roll them up, and it's really very simple. So, we're going to take our pan, spray it very, very liberally. We're going to spray the top of our tortillas as well. And I'm just going to roll them straight on the pan. As it gets full, it gets a little more difficult to do that. But I have, like I said, about 15 tortillas warmed up right now. It really depends on how large your chicken breasts were and how much filling you put in them. I tend to overfill in the very beginning until I get the hang of it, and then I get it a little bit more on point. But about 2 to 3 tablespoons will be plenty. Now, if you prefer corn tortillas, you can use corn tortillas for this also. I use a lot of green chilies in recipes, so if you want to use green chilies, this would be a perfect, especially instead of the jalapenos if you don't like spice. And just tuck it to the side and pull our next one. I love this little thing because it keeps them warm while I work. You'll see what I mean when I tend to overfill. Already overfilling that one. And we're just going to keep going until we're through all of the chicken. So it ended up making 16 today. And these are just the regular fajita size. They're not the big old jumbo burrito ones. So the oven is still preheating. We need it at 425. And we're going to spray the tops of these so they get nice and crispy, almost like a fried texture. And these are going to cook once it's fully preheated for about 10 to 15 minutes. It's really just to heat the outsides of them and give it that crispy crunch that we know for taquitos. And y'all, I think I might change this channel's name to The Messy Cook. I know y'all probably figured it out by now, but I'm messy. In the oven these are going to go, and I'll see y'all back in about 15 minutes. Our taquitos are all done. I sliced one in half just so it could start cooling off so we can taste test. You see it's still quite warm. We're going to taste test, and like I said, this is the part that really sends it over the top, at least in my opinion. They're yummy just like this, but this dip is what makes them. I just split it between 2 little jugs. We get these from, or we got these from a lady that has cows that she does fresh milk, and they're the perfect little containers. Yummy. Now it does have a little kick, so if you don't like spice, I mean, you probably would have figured out by now with the jalapenos in this and this. But instead of just cutting them out completely, maybe add in those green chilies so you can at least still get some kind of extra flavor. But the cilantro, the lime, the jalapenos, like it just kind of warms your soul. So we're going to have these. Yes, I'm double dipping, but it's just my family. So we're going to have these with some saffron rice and some beans, and we're going to have a very yummy dinner. We'll see y'all next time, and thank y'all for joining us.